Hi everybody, my name is Lynn Ismael and welcome to my channel. I'm a home gardener in southwestern Ontario, zone 6A/B, 5B, depending on how warm our winter gets. This winter has been quite, not calm, that's not the word I'm looking for, but it was quite tepid. No, not tepid. It was mild. That's the right word. It's been a bit mild around here. So anyway, right now I'm doing some pinching out of my sweet peas, but that's not what this video is about. In this video, I'm going to talk about my experience having my soil test done in my garden, what my results are, and what am I going to do moving forward. So if you're interested in finding out how to get your soil test done as a home gardener in Ontario, or if you're just interested in what my results are like, then keep watching this video. So if you're not familiar with the term soil test, it's basically a type of, it's a form of soil analysis that gives you the result on the nutrient content of your soil, what kind of pH level it has, and how much organic matter it contains. The reason that's important for you as a gardener is that all those three, nutrient level, pH level, and organic matter, they all affect plant growth. And if plants don't get those proper requirements, then they will fail to thrive. And sometimes, if it gets worse enough, they eventually die. Sometimes you don't even have to do a soil test done to know that your soil is not doing great. And you can fix your soil by adding more amendments, more fertilizer to fix the problem. But if you don't know what the problem is, if you don't know the right levels of fertilizer you have to add, then you're basically just guessing, which is okay if you don't mind spending money doing trial and error on what fertilizer works. But sometimes if you add the wrong fertilizer or the wrong amount of fertilizer, it can actually be more harmful for your plants. It's also a big concern if your garden is close to a body of water. So just like myself, I live in southwestern Ontario and my garden is actually very close to Lake Huron. So I don't really want to add too much fertilizer and add to water pollution. I want to keep the lake as pristine as we could for the next generation. Like I mentioned earlier, soil tests also include what pH level your soil has. And that will help you decide what kind of plants you should invest in, because you don't really want to buy a plant that is not going to thrive in your area, because either they're just going to die, or you would have to spend lots of time and effort and money trying to change the pH level of the soil for the plant that you bought. I mean, it's up to you. Sometimes it's fun trying to figure things out like that, but if money is an issue, if time is an issue, then it's good to know from the start what your soil level is, just so you know what to plant eventually. So when I decided to get my soil test done, just like most people, the first thing I did was did some Google internet search. There are several labs in Ontario that offer them, mostly for farmers, which makes sense because it's their business to know what their soil or how fertile their soil are. But there's not much really option for home gardeners that I found, or at least they're not presented in layman's terms that most people like me would understand. That's why I liked University of Guelph. University of Guelph is located in southwestern Ontario, which means they're familiar with the type of soil that I have. And that is something you might want to consider when looking for a lab that would do a soil test for you. So basically, I collected the sample on February 19th. February 20th, I sent the sample via Canada Post. A couple of days later, I got a confirmation email that they got my package. And then on March 10th, I got an email of my results. So in their website, they said it'll be between 15 to 20 days from when they receive your sample to when they give you the results. But in my case, it was only 12 business days. Now, typically you want to get your soil test done in the fall, just so you can get the results and then you can add the amendments that you need to get ready for spring. But I didn't do that last fall, and I was just curious, and so I did that this spring instead, which turned out okay because I guess they're not busy and they were able to do my results quicker. Right now I'm just transplanting, or it's a different, I guess it's pricking out. Basically, I'm pricking out seeds that have pre-germinated in these little condiment cups. So it acts like a little humidity dome. It acts like a humidity dome. Jesus. It acts like a humidity dome to get the seeds going. And I just use some finer vermiculite instead of your normal seed starting mix. I'm not mad at you. I'm sorry. My tongue's just not finding the right words. Is it my tongue or my brain? One of those two. Anyway, where was I? Oh yeah. Which I was saying, I'm just pricking out the seedlings that have germinated in the vermiculite inside this little condiment cup into cell blocks, or cells, seed cells. Just so I know that the stuff that are in the cells are seedlings that will grow. I mean, it doesn't always work, but I'd rather do it this way and at least optimize my space in my growing rack. It just bugs me when there are empty cells and there's nothing growing when there's something else could grow in there. So I find that this is the method that works for me. Not the most time efficient, but it's great for mindfulness. It's quite relaxing, actually. So now let's talk about the results. When you get your email, you are provided with a document with 3 pages. First page will have the results for your electric conductivity and organic matter. That's the first main box or main column. Electric conductivity is how much salt is in your soil. And if you flip to the last page, it gives you a range on what your electric conductivity should be to have the optimum level for plant growth. The next result is your organic matter. Apparently anything over 3% is adequate. The one thing I would say that I wish they've included in the result is the range. What range is considered normal? I'm not an agronomist. I don't know by heart what a good phosphorus level is like. I had to research that myself. And when I was doing my research, I found that magnesium, calcium, and potassium has to be in certain ratios amongst each other to give the best optimum condition for plant growth.
So this is the document that University of Guelph sent me. Just the values, not the range. And as I mentioned previously, it would be nice to make sense of these values. And so I went ahead and did my own research, which led me to a handbook from the Ontario Ministry of Agriculture called Soil Fertility Handbook, and I found this very helpful. You can download it online, and here I found my answer on what cation exchange capacity means. And it's also from this handbook that I got the formula for finding out what my cation exchange capacity based on the results that University of Guelph sent me. However, this handbook uses a milligram per kilogram of soil unit, while the University of Guelph uses a milligram per liter of soil unit. So I have to do my own conversion. So I did another Google search, and I found out that 1 liter of soil is equal to 1.5 kilograms of soil. So basically just divide what the University of Guelph values are to 1.5, and that would get me my milligrams per kilogram of soil values to use in this formula from the handbook. Another great resource that I discovered is the tech bulletins from AL Canada Laboratories Incorporation. Here I found a paper on understanding CAC and percent page base saturation. And this is where I learned how to calculate my percent base saturation for the different cations that I have in the soil, the important ones anyway, calcium, magnesium, and potassium. So that's what I did here. I just followed the formula. My calcium is 75%, my potassium is 5%, and my magnesium is 20%. So what do these values mean? I went back to the A&L Canada Laboratories Tech Bulletin and found the document called Soil Optimum Levels based on CSC. So if I go down the column of the CSC 7 to 15 and look into my phosphorus parts per mole is 35. So I'm considered medium for that element. For potassium, I have 233. So under the column of 7 to 15 CAC, that is considered good. And if I go down to calcium, under the 7 to 15 CSC, my calcium is 1933, and that's considered high. Further down is magnesium, and my magnesium is over 300. So that's also considered high. At the bottom of this document, it tells you what your saturation should be. So with my CSC being 12.8, my potassium should be between 3 to 5, magnesium between 8 to 20, and calcium between 60 to 80, which is good news for me because I know that my potassium is 5%, my magnesium is 20%, and my calcium is 75%. So all in all, my elements are balanced in my soil.
So now that I know my results, what am I going to do with that? What exactly is my plan? From my soil test, I now know that I have enough potassium in my soil. My percent saturation of cation for potassium is right at a higher range of 5%. If I increase that more without increasing calcium and magnesium, then the balance might shift. My CSC is a good level right now, as far as I understand, and I don't want to ruin that. I've already added green sand in some of the beds that I prepared in the fall, and green sand it does contain a lot of microminerals, but it's very rich in potassium, which means I have to fix that. I would just have to add more kelp, which is both higher in calcium and magnesium, and hopefully that will bring the balance back. The soil test from University of Guelph gave me a range of how much nitrogen I should add, but I think because I've already added alfalfa pellets earlier in the winter, I should be okay for the year, and then I'll just have to supplement that later in this fall for the following year. As for the phosphorus in my soil, they recommend using the formula that University of Guelph provided me. I should be using 10 kilograms per 100 meters square of phosphorus amendment. I already have rock phosphate in my stash, so I think that should be okay. It's a slow release fertilizer, so if I lay it down this year, it should hopefully be available to my plants in a year or two. And because I'm relying on my microbes to help me with fertilizing, I'll make sure that I'll add more mycorrhiza in my soil before planting so that the mycorrhiza form a symbiotic relationship with my plants, and that will help them get the phosphorus that they need. Now, for plants that don't form a symbiosis with mycorrhiza, like stock, like the Brassica family doesn't do that, I will have to just use my Gaia Green Bloom fertilizer that I have, which is rich in phosphorus. And although it does have some potash, I'll just do the same thing with my green sand. I'll just add more kelp to balance the calcium and magnesium. As for my pH level, it is 7.4. It's considered slightly alkaline, but it's still okay for plants. I'm hoping that because I'm planning on adding more compost and using compost tea, I'm hoping that the microbes I add in the soil will release acidifying compounds that will eventually balance out the pH in my soil. Now, I heard that when it comes to dahlias, they like their soil slightly acidic. I mean, I grew most of my dahlias in pots this year, so their pH is balanced, except for the cafe au lait that I had. And it did flower. It did have tall blooms, but they had smaller blooms, which I didn't mind because they were easier to make arrangements with. But I'm just curious if lowering the pH level, well, at least my pH level in my soil, is better for the dahlias. So what I'm going to do is I will mix half, well, in the hole anyway, in the hole where I'm going to put my dahlia. You know what I mean? When I'm digging a hole for the dahlias, I will mix 1 part peat to 1 part soil in the hole to cover the dahlias, so at least there's some acidifying going on. And I guess we'll find out in the fall whether that actually made a difference or not. So in conclusion, I am glad that I did the soil test. It helps me solidify my plan for the coming year, and it also helps me focus because I tend to try everything, and knowing what my results are, I'm more likely not to try anything that would actually not be beneficial for my soil. So there you have it. Hopefully you found some nuggets of information that might help you in your gardening in this video. If you're interested in following me in my gardening journey, feel free to hit the subscribe button. And if you like this information that I provided, it would help me if you click the like button as well, just so other people who are looking for the same information can find this video to help them as well. So until then, I'll see you next Thursday. Bye!